Bernie Madoff's longtime accountant arrested on fraud charges today and released after posting bond.
Of Wall Street, which sometimes the regulators lose sight of, and as do the academics, is it's a for-profit enterprise.
Work on a trading desk. Stop what you're doing for 1 second.
Bernard Madoff.
The FBI arrested him this morning after he told senior employees yesterday that his business was a giant Ponzi scheme.
Tonight, as much as $50 billion is gone, vanished.
From Madoff clients around the world, including celebrities like Steven Spielberg, Kevin Bacon, and Elie Wiesel.
This can't be. This just is not happening.
Madoff confessed he hadn't made a single trade in years.
Gift wrapped and delivered the largest Ponzi scheme in history to them, and somehow they couldn't be bothered to conduct a thorough and proper investigation.
In 2009, he pleaded guilty to 11 criminal counts and received the maximum sentence, 150 years.
Bernard Madoff has just been sentenced for the biggest investment fraud in Wall Street history. A federal judge...
Only way you're going to stop Mr. Madoff is put him in jail, just like every other criminal.
In the winter of 2008, the world watched something both ordinary and extraordinary unfold. A quiet New York firm, a name once synonymous with success, collapsed. Bank accounts froze. Charity checks bounced. People who had trusted a lifetime of savings woke up to discover their balances were gone. This was not a single overnight mistake. It was the end of a decades-long illusion. At the heart of it was Bernie Madoff, the man who once ran a respected market-making firm. The man who sat on community boards and chaired NASDAQ. The man who, for years, told investors a story of steady returns and careful risk management. But the story was a lie. Madoff was operating what the FBI later called the largest Ponzi scheme in history. How did the illusion finally end? In December 2008, regulators moved. The Securities and Exchange Commission filed emergency actions against Madoff's firm. The agency sought to freeze assets and protect investors. Within days, what had been rumor turned to fact. The CC move was the official first blow of a public unraveling. Courtroom proceedings followed. In March 2009, Bernie Madoff admitted to what investigators already suspected. He pleaded guilty to multiple counts of securities fraud and related crimes. In June of that year, a judge sentenced him to 150 years in prison, a sentence that reflected not only his crimes, but the depth of the betrayal. The scale of the fraud shocked the public. Headlines named enormous sums. Early estimates spoke of as much as $65 billion connected to the scheme, a staggering figure that captured imaginations and headlines. But beneath that headline number lay a more complicated truth about losses, recoveries, and who actually profited and who actually suffered. The legal and financial cleanup would continue for years. Trustees in the Department of Justice pursued asset recoveries, settlements, and funds to compensate victims. Over time, billions were returned. Still, the human damage, livelihoods destroyed, charities gutted, some families ruined, could not be fully repaired. Recent recoveries and court-managed distributions have continued, even as the world moved on to other scandals. But to understand how this all happened, we have to step back. We have to see how a modest securities firm became the stage for the largest white-collar crime the modern era had seen. Bernard L. Madoff was not born a villain. He was born in Queens, New York in 1938. He founded a small trading business in 1960 with a modest loan and a handful of clients. Over time, he built a reputation for reliability. He became a pioneer in using computerized quotes to match buyers and sellers. He leveraged technology, made markets, and gradually rose to prominence. His professional persona was polished. He was ingrained in the financial world. He was trusted. People wanted to be his clients. The trust he earned created an engine. Investors, institutions, and wealthy individuals sought steady, conservative returns. Madoff's firm promised just that. He reported consistent returns year after year, even when markets were volatile. The pattern looked almost too good to be true, but the returns were presented with enough competence and prestige that few asked the hardest questions. At some point, historians and investigators still debate the precise moment that the business model shifted. Instead of earning profits transparently, the firm began to use new investors' money to pay returns to earlier clients. That is the essence of a Ponzi scheme. New money keeps the show running until, inevitably, new money dries up or too many investors request redemptions at once. For years, the mechanism worked. Early investors were paid, and their statements reinforced faith. Yet from the inside, things were different. The firm produced fabricated trade confirmations and account statements. Encrypted ledgers masked real activity. The illusion required discipline, secrecy, and crucially, the sustained belief of many participants. Part of Madoff's mastery was social. He cultivated relationships. He turned clients into advocates. Some feeder funds and intermediaries, firms that aggregated smaller investors and placed their money with him, amplified the reach of his operation. These feeder funds helped create the perception of wide endorsement. It was easier to trust a fund that had already invested than to question a single advisor. When the global financial crisis hit in 2008, the scheme's fragile balances were exposed. Investors, frightened by market turmoil, demanded withdrawals. The inflows slowed, the outflows accelerated. There simply wasn't enough genuine capital to satisfy everyone. The illusion imploded. The unmasking revealed both mechanics and victims. Some investors had actually profited, receiving more money than they put in. Others lost everything: charities, foundations, small family accounts. Trustees and courts then faced the painful task of untangling decades of transfers. Recovering funds proved complex. Some monies had been distributed and spent long ago. Others were hidden in offshore accounts or consumed by earlier beneficiaries. Still, recovery efforts, negotiated settlements, and civil suits eventually returned billions. Small comfort for many, but some restitution was possible. We should pause on the human toll. Two of Madoff's sons, who publicly said they were unaware of the fraud, suffered deeply. One son, Mark, later died by suicide. The family's life unraveled in public. Victims included famous names, charities, and thousands of ordinary people. The emotional consequences are embedded in court transcripts and in the slow daily grind of losing a retirement nest egg. This was not abstract loss. It broke lives. How did a regulatory system fail to stop the fraud earlier? The CCC itself would later admit shortcomings. Internal reports and independent reviews found that regulators missed or dismissed red flags. At times, competence, resource limits, and deference to reputation slowed proper scrutiny. Madoff's social standing and the appearance of compliance created a sort of institutional blindness. That failure became a bitter lesson for regulators around the world. Madoff's prosecution was comprehensive. Investigators assembled a mosaic of evidence, fabricated documents, internal notes, and ledger entries that contradicted client statements. Key employees and associates were interviewed. Banks and feeder funds provided transactional records that laid bare the flow of money. The public spectacle of the trial peeled back the polished veneer and showed how the system had been gamed. There are a few hard lessons here. First, consistent returns that seem immune to market cycles should always trigger skepticism. No strategy survives every market in the way Madoff's returns claim to. Second, audits and independent verifications matter. When independent auditors and regulators failed to hold the operation to account, the illusion grew stronger. Third, social trust can be weaponized. Reputation and access to elite circles can act as a cover for malfeasance. The aftermath left the financial world shaken. Victim funds were distributed over many years. Courts supervised recoveries.